Hey folks, Coach Dylan here from AlanDuranceCoaching.com. Today we're talking about stability. More importantly, we are starting a new series of videos where we're going to be doing some techniques and demonstrations for stability lifting. We all intellectually know stability is really important for endurance athletes, but it's not something we spend a lot of time actually thinking about, and more importantly, a lot of us don't spend enough time actually doing it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to run through a series of exercises over the next couple weeks, kind of looking at how to incorporate some stability lifting into our training. It's important to have it programmed to pair well with what else we got going on, depending on your discipline. But when it comes to lifting is an important thing to do, especially as we get older, right? Like it helps us maintain muscle mass and power output and all that kind of stuff. But lifting, just like anything else, needs to be periodized, right? So stability lifting is normally where I start, even if I have a client that's not an endurance athlete, just a general fitness kind of person, right? Because if you're going to be lifting, you have to be able to lift safely before you can lift heavy or lift explosively, right? Kind of like doing some dedicated, like a super dedicated training block for a race. We got to make sure we have that base training under us before we can really dive into it, right? Otherwise, we're going to get hurt. So lifting is kind of like base training for lifting, but it has a very specific purpose. And that purpose is to make us more stable as athletes. Because the thing we don't think about a lot is lifting is important. Stability is important as endurance athletes because muscles cannot push. They can only pull, right? And that's really important. That is the fundamentals of how muscles work is they can only pull, right? Like my bicep can't push my hand out, right? It can only pull my hand towards my shoulder. If I want to move my hand out, my tricep has to pull on my forearm and pull it out, right? And so if we're swimming, we can't push the water back. We have to pull it back, right? We have to use our lats and pull our arm towards our ribs with a good catch, right? To pull, right? If we're running, we're not pushing off the ground. What we're really doing is we're pulling off of our pelvis. And so if that pelvis isn't stable, we yank on it, it's going to move, which means we're losing energy, right? We're going to dump all the energy we're producing in the muscle, which means it's inefficient. If we're on the bike, we need to pull that heel up, right? And we need to push the leg down. But when we're pushing the leg down, what we're really doing is we're contracting our quads, right? And we're pulling with our glute to pull our knee back, and we're pulling with our quad to straighten our leg, right? We're not actually pushing down with our quad as much as we think of it that way, right? I realize it sounds like semantics, but it's really, really important because this is why stability lifting is so important for us to do as endurance athletes. If we don't do it, our core, which is like everything from like just below our shoulders to just below our hips, our core is not going to be stable, which means we're not going to be moving efficiently. We're going to be generating energy, which means work, right? We're going to be burning energy, spending precious glucose, and that energy is just wasted, right? Nobody's 100% efficient, but the more efficient we can get with that energy transfer, the faster we're going to move for however much energy we're expending, right? As endurance athletes, that's something we're really into. How many triathletes or cyclists do you know that worry about how many ounces their bike weighs, right? Because it increases efficiency to have a lighter bike, right? This is the same thing, only we can get much more bang for our buck normally, okay? So the first thing we're going to be talking about, the first exercise we're going to be doing are going to be stability ball chest flies. Now, normally, if we can, I tell all my folks to do their lifting on a stability ball, all right, instead of a bench. And the reason why is because it requires you to keep your core engaged. You should keep your core engaged on a bench, but a lot of people don't. If you do it on a ball, you know when you're not engaging that core, so you're not flat, right? If you're on a ball, you should be flat just like you're on a bench. So it's really important to have the right size ball, right? It should come up to just above your knee or just below your knee. So without any further ado, let's roll into chest flies. All right, so you see me getting set up here on the ball. Notice I'm picking up the weights as I'm sitting on the ball and then rolling out, right? I lift the weights up as I roll out. The ball is situated kind of right, the weight is between my shoulder blades. I got a straight line from my knee through my hip to my shoulder, right? And then we're coming out with the chest flies. Now the chest flies, it is really important to make sure you're using your pecs, like the big muscle in your chest, and not your shoulders. Don't tear your rotator cuff doing these. But because of that, they're really good for challenging your ability to stabilize that shoulder, right? But notice, we're good and stable. We're inhaling on the way down, exhaling on the way up, keeping that core nice and stable. If you need to make it harder to stabilize, you can get your feet closer together. If you need to make it easier to stabilize, you can get your feet further apart. The thing to look out for, though, is making sure your hips don't drop. If your hips start dropping, and the hips drop, and so you got to bend at the waist, then that means that those glutes and hams aren't engaged, keeping that core stable, which is part of the whole point here, right? It's not partly about the chest. It's also about the hips. And you can see, like, my hips are starting to get a little tired here. My core's getting tired because my hips are dropping just a little bit as I progress through this exercise, and it's getting more difficult and I'm paying attention to my arms. Then as I get up, I drop the weights to my hips as I roll up, and then I set them down. Do not put the weights down while you're laying on the ball. Let me know what you think down below. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, share this with your friends. But leave me a comment down below, one, if this was useful to you or if you learned something. And two, let me know what you think of the audio quality, because I actually got a new laptop that I was using the microphone on the laptop for the voiceovers. And I haven't done voiceovers in a long time of stuff. So I don't know for sure how it's going to sound once it's all put together. So let me know what you think between the difference in the audio quality between this microphone and the microphone I was using for the voiceover. So that's how to do chest flies on the stability ball. Again, you want to make sure you're squeezing through the chest, right? We don't want to be up here. We want to be here. So we're squeezing through the chest, through the pec. You should feel it right here, not up in the shoulder. If you're up here, using your front deltoid, and it's, one, not safe. Most importantly, it's not safe on your shoulder, so don't do it. Just be right here. You're going to feel like your hands are at your waist. They're not. Squeeze through even with your sternum, kind of right even with your nipples right through here. Lean with the elbow, right? You don't want to be here laying on your back. We want to be here, squeezing around. Just like giving someone a big hug. And that's all the chest fly is. So, till next time, train smart.